Today I'm trying to find some shade, and whilst out on my walk I've collected some beautiful nettles that I'm going to use to show you how to make some nettle cordage. Whilst it is perfectly possible to collect your nettles without any gloves whatsoever, for speed and when it comes to taking off all the leaves and taking back all the spikes, I personally highly recommend the lovely gardening gloves. The best time of year to collect your nettles for making cordage is indeed this time of year. So it's the end of August and the start of September, when it means that the nettle has had the most time to grow to full height. And what makes our cordage is actually the outer layer. It's not the inner piece, it is the outer skin around up the stalk of your nettle. So first of all, it's really important to remove our leaves and any of the spikes. So here we go. It's quite easy to clean off your nettles simply by running your hands up and down the length of your nettle, which should remove all of your leaves, leaving you with a wonderful stingless stem, which, as you can see, is nice and bendy for you to work with. You'll need to do this to all of them. And once you have a number of these beautiful stems all prepared, you're ready for the next stage. I stopped here today by the farmer's wall because I've noticed that there are some loose rocks around. And you're going to need some of these to help just soften up the stems of the nettle. I'm going to place one underneath. I'm going to take my first nettle stem and the second rock, and I'm just very gently going to soften up down the length of the nettle. So if I follow my fingers all the way up the length, just make sure it is actually, see, it's a little bit incomplete at this area here, so I can go back, lay it down once again on my other rock, take my sturdy stone and just gently bash the ends too. Separating the skin of this nettle from its inner pith can be a little bit fiddly or a little bit tricky, and you may end up with quite a lot of shorter lengths and not necessarily the great long ones, certainly when you're starting out and beginning. So what we're going to do is go to halfway and we're going to break. And as you can see, it just lifts the surface of the nettle. And you see that. So I just want to continue and just open up the surface of my nettles. Like so. By peeling off the outer as best I can in long strips. And as you can see, the strips are really thin. I'm going to leave these out on the side. This is a wonderful activity that you can do. It's very mindful, it's calming, and it's nice to do as a parent, whilst your little ones, or even big ones, are all running around in the great outdoors, perfectly happy, safe, you know where they are. They're not going to go too far, and you can just sit and you can peel away at your nettles and know that you are making something that you can take home with you to use when you want to make some cordage. And as you can see, I'm just getting a nice long one off here, running down the length, and you'll be able to use it either for gardening, or you'll be able to use it for some jewelry making, or who knows what you're going to use this for, something of your own design. And there we see, we have a nice long piece, and I'm just going to lay this over my leg for it to dry. So many hours later, and I am now back at home. It was a wonderful day and a wonderful walk. I must have collected, at a guess, probably between another 10-15 nettles along my walk, which I stripped and had the same process with. And I let the skin to the stems of my nettles lie and dry. So they've been drying in the sunshine probably for a good few hours now. If you don't have a sunny day, I imagine you can leave them overnight just to dry in your home in an area where there is lots of airflow. So here we have lots of different lengths of cordage, some long, some short. Some are clearly more red or brown from the red and brown nettles. These fibres are known to be much stronger than the green ones, but you're going to have both. Clearly, if you're wanting to make a really strong cordage, you want to be making sure that you find the red nettles only. But otherwise, if you're learning and you know, this is what you can find, then this is what you use. It may interest you to, or you might wonder, why I have it on the loo roll. I took some loo roll with me because I find that this can be a wonderful way of transporting any cordage that I may have done. And then when I come home, it's really simple to unroll. After having spent all that time drying your cordage, unusually, you now need to wet your fingers and just re-wet your beautiful strands. Next, you are going to make sure that your ends are slightly off. You don't want them finishing in the same place. You are then going to roll your two strands together until they are so tight that they start to make themselves naturally into a loop like so. Then you are going to clamp onto that end, and we're going to be encouraging it. You are going to be twisting one length of cordage. Notice it's not very much that I'm twisting. Holding it, then lifting the other piece over, twisting, and you can decide. I'm twisting towards myself. Many people prefer to twist away, and I guess that depends if you're left or right-handed. And then I'm going to swap them and tightly pull them round. And tighten, pull round, tighten. Make sure you're doing this as tight as you can and pull round. And as you can see, that cord there is becoming really tight and beautiful, and you're just going to encourage that to happen naturally. So, tightening and encouraging. And I'm starting to see that this one here is getting thinner than this one. Tightening and lifting over, which is the point where I can begin to think about adding. See, can you see my cordage here? It's being made. About adding in another strand, so I can look at how much more I might need to make this one as thick as this, and I can choose another strand, and it naturally tapers anyway, so there's always a thick end and a thin end, but you want to start with the thin end. Start by feeding that one in, so twisting, and starting by feeding that one in and lifting, twisting and lifting. You can see the cord is just growing. There's the piece from the end that we added on. And so the process continues. All the time, be able to see how your natural cordage is progressing. So I've used about 2/3 of my supplies, and I now have quite a long strand. It's just over 1 meter long, and I have naturally allowed the twisting process to come to its natural conclusion with just the ends. As you can see, the cordage changes in thickness as it goes along. So I'm not sure I would have passed in ancient times for being the best cordage maker, but you can also see how these pieces that have been added in are still loose along the sides, and I'm going to be cutting those off. But first I'm going to let this dry overnight. So I left my cordage out overnight, and as you can see, it's still fairly tightly woven together, although there are some areas that could do with a little bit tightening up. So now's the time where you can just twist and encourage that twist. You can also see why it is so important to make sure that when you are twisting, you keep it as tight as you really can. Then last of all, we're going to take some scissors, and we are going to just run up and down the sides of the beautiful nettle twine and snip off any loose ends. And there you have the final cordage. Now, I'm likely to use this one in the garden for our beautiful sunflowers to see if I can hold some of the stems which are starting to fall, hold it up. And if you got an idea of the strength, I am really pulling on this. Oh, and it is actually really strong, despite the fact that I also used green as well as brown there. And it will at points give this slightly rope-like effect where it's starting to become a little bit more unraveled towards the end there. But I found that generally if you encourage it by twisting it to hold it nice and tight, that generally speaking this overcomes the problem. And it does have an uneven surface, so I'm not sure I would have passed in ancient times. So you can see the difference there between my beginnings and partway down my cordage. Now, obviously the aim, if you're trying to do this for jewelry making, would be to keep it nice and smooth and of a similar width all the way along. However, you know, I'm going to be using this one in the garden, but that might be something that you would like to think about. So there we go. I wish you a happy cordaging futures, and I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and that we see you again sometime soon. Take care. Bye from Weeby Kids.